What's up and welcome to a Mograph Mocast. I'm Dave.
I'm David, and I gotta do the Matt thing, and our special guest, the amazing, the fantastic, the indescribable Sekani Solomon.
What's up? How's it going?
And Mograph is a supplement to our site, mograph.com, which is a motion graphics tutorial site with tutorials, plugins, podcasts, and other Mograph stuff. And on the show, we talk about everything ranging from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects, plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. You can email us info@mograph.com. Let us know what you think about the show, questions, comments, concerns, queries, grievances. Send us your topic ideas. We love to hear what you think about the show, how everything's going. And by the way, while we're at it, I will mention that there is a podcast survey, and I'll be putting a link in the show notes. We've been getting some responses on that through social media and the newsletter and whatnot. But first of all, you may be wondering where Matt is.
He's got a baby.
What's the deal with that? He's got a baby. So he's watching. He's live on the...
Baby is asleep right now, he says, so that's good.
What's up, Matt?
Yeah. Yep. I got a little photo I can bring up here, I think. If I can bring this. Yeah, here we go. This is him on Skype the other day. He's already working with the baby in his lap.
That baby looks so like him.
So he's taking a little time off there and, getting used to that new schedule. I think I'm going to be seeing him sitting there with the baby on his lap a lot.
Did you go see the baby yet or not?
No,
yet?
I was going to go to the hospital last Sunday and they were already home.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, "Oh, all right."
You missed it.
No, we gotta find a time to head over there and see the baby. He said we got to go over there before he gets too big. Said he's getting big quick.
Totally. Because you guys are like almost an hour away from each other, right?
Yeah, it's
driving
a long
distance.
way.
I'm in Colorado now, but I'm still like 40 minutes away from EJ, and we haven't even seen each other the whole time. Like I went and did a presentation meetup thing, and he wasn't there. He told me like an hour before.
Funny.
He's like, "No, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be taking a plane to LA." I'm like, "Screw you, EJ." He's supposed to be my wingman at this thing, and he just bailed. But you know how you do.
So I don't know if I said it or not, but David Ariew, this is David Ariew you're hearing in your ear holes right now. And Octane Jesus, as he's so lovingly called.
I'm starting to growing the Jesus hair back out a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to go full Jesus, but I'm kind of halfway there.
Half Jesus.
Half Jesus.
Just a couple things in the week wrap up, and then we're going to get to some fun topics and talk about some of Sekani's work. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I mentioned the podcast survey. I also wanted to just put it out there again. Remember to join us in our Slack channel. I am going to find an open window and open it up again here pretty soon, so you can join us in Slack. And I wanted to mention this Dallas meetup that we're going to be doing. That I have dubbed ABCDFWC4D.
I love it.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to say very fast or whatever, but
because it's ABC already been chewed, DFW
already been chewed,
Dallas Fort Worth, ABCD
Dallas Fort Worth,
FW,
C4D for
C4D.
4D. We are slowly rebranding our local meetup to be something motion graphics. We haven't figured it out yet. I just think it's a little bit better for people who don't know what C4D is.
Right.
Hopefully when it's just a bunch of letters
for the title of the event, it's a little bit confusing. Even DFW C4D. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Colorado C4D, EJ did the same thing. He changed it as well, I think.
Yeah, it's like Colorado Motion Meetup now, I think.
Yeah. So this is a double event that we're doing in Dallas. Please, if you are at all interested in it, consider flying out here for this, because this is going to be a 2-day motion graphics event. It's going to be March 22nd and 23rd. The 22nd is going to be the grand opening slash 10-year anniversary of the new building for Already Been Chewed. Also,
I'm excited to see that.
Next day, we're going to do the DFWC4D with EJ and David Brodeur. So that's going to be fun. And hopefully, hopefully, David, you make it out. I've been talking to you
hopefully,
about coming.
yeah, I'm gonna try.
It's a long shot, Sekani, but you should come out.
You should come out.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, send me the invite.
Yeah, totally. If you go to mograph.com /events, we've got some events listed. We're going to try and keep this updated as much as possible, especially for those who are trying to go to like NAB. They want to know what the schedule is going to be, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes you're like, well, what happens on Monday? Well, what happens on Tuesday? All of that. You can see that there. We have the details here. I did a little fun graphic
I love that.
with some alphabet cereal.
Oh,
Nice.
Put a little one of EJ's characters on the box. Part of a work-life balance.
The donut, classic.
Classic donut.
Yeah.
But yeah, this 2-day event, you can get on here. You can get a ticket for each day. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be a lot of people coming in, even from Maxon. So this is going to be a great event. Already been chewed. Man, what a team. What a team they got. By the way, Barton will be on the show on Monday.
Nice.
Already, it's like a show on a work day followed by a show on a work day. But if you didn't catch him on Chris Doe's future interview,
it was really good.
Last
week,
check that out.
Lots of nice discussions happened.
Yeah, check that out. I've got some follow-up questions.
It was kind of like
so.
Camp Mograph. It was his whole kind of backstory and all of that. So yeah, really fun to listen to.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Barton's
Barton's amazing. He can just talk for hours on end. Yeah.
Yes, and it's so great. It's so great to hear some of his stories about how he got where he is and everything.
And like how he runs a studio with like fair practices to the employees and all that kind of stuff.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah.
So anyway, that's it for the week wrap up. I wanted to get to the good stuff, to the topics. Sekani, let's talk about you.
Yeah.
First of all, tell everybody what you do, where you work, first of all.
Yeah, so I'm a senior motion designer working in New York, but freelance everywhere. But primarily, I work at Cash App full time.
Yeah, and that's Cash App. That's where you send money to other people, and that's the same people as Square Cash. Is that right? I'm sorry, exactly. Square. What is it?
Square. Yeah, just Square.
That's right.
Yeah, so Cash essentially is a subsidiary of Square.
There's so many squares.
Right.
Like Squarespace and
Learn Squared.
Yeah.
People confuse them all the time.
And there's all these red things, Red Giant, Red Shift.
Yeah.
Red cameras.
So
you presented at NAB East and you had a great presentation. You were showing off, I forget the name of the client.
The Abbasi Rosborough.
Yes, sir, Abbasi Rosborough. They're a really dope menswear brand based in New York City.
See, I'm not fancy enough to remember that name.
I'm just obsessed with this spot, so that's the only reason I remember it. Not for the brand itself, just, the sick motion design.
Well, Matt and I were standing there, Sekani, we haven't had that much time to actually like hang out. I've seen you at some events, but it seems like you've kind of been in and out at some of them, and we haven't been able to like sit down at the after parties or anything. And like,
you gotta come to one where Beeple's there and party Beeple's in full force, and then you'll get the true experience.
Yeah,
he'll give you like five gummies. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you meant 6. Okay.
Yeah. It's really fun, afterwards. But when we did talk to each other, like that 5 minutes, 10 minutes that we got, like on the NAB East floor. Like it was a really cool conversation. I was asking you about that piece because I think you used some Marvelous Designer in there. Oh man, which I have some respect for because I've tried to dabble in that.
Yeah, at this point you're like a Marvelous Designer master between this and Hidden. You're doing a lot in that program.
Yeah, it could. I mean, once you kind of get used to it, like initially it could be a little bit to wrangle, but once you know like the limitations and know exactly what it can do and what it can't, and you kind of work within those restraints, it becomes a lot simpler to use. Like you just can't push it to do something it wasn't meant to do. I think that's like fundamental.
I'm very curious how you went about really digging into that program, because I have tried to do some tutorials online, and that piece of software has changed so much that every time I load a tutorial, it's like, click this button, and I'm like, well, that button doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, so it's crazy because when you look online, most of the tutorials is like, oh, how to make pants, how to make clothes. Right. And then when I started hitting, I didn't want to do any of that. I was just trying to figure out how to like drape cloth essentially. So, but I guess that's where I started from, right? Because I was looking at a bunch of different options, the cloth features in Cinema 4D. But like when I saw a video of Marvelous, like, this is nuts. This is real time stuff. So what I tend to do is just get like a basic grasp of how the software works, but then I'll kind of figure out the things that I really want to know. And then like I had a buddy that was kind of using it, so he gave me like a few tips here and there. But the cool thing about working on the Abasi Rosborough spot was that they're very forward thinking in the way they design. So they actually designed like that jacket in Clo, which is like the sister program to Marvelous Designer. So I already had like a really good base to start from. I just kind of needed to go in and like fix some of the seams, just make it feel a little bit more realistic. And then I took that Alembic over to Cinema 4D and just like textured it with Redshift and really make it like polish and shine. But yeah, it was an interesting workflow because, you know, you're trying to get different movements. So it's like, okay, well, you have to animate a character within Cinema, then bring them into Marvelous, pose it in a certain way, bring it back to Cinema.
Did you use Mixamo for that, or did you just like kind of hand animate? Because I guess it's kind of more slow-mo, but I guess you could take Mixamo and then reinterpolate it to be slower kind of thing.
Yeah, I did use Mixamo, I think for the walk cycle. But then like some of the more custom poses, I just
that makes sense.
Animated myself. Cool. Yeah.
And then did you just like pose morph it, or did you actually go in and, you know, do the whole like more complex character animation type work?
Yeah, I just kind of winged it. I was like, all right, set keyframes here, set keyframes here. Some of it is like a lot of linear animation too, like all this stuff.
Right.
So it wasn't, and that's really important, right? You have to know what you can do and what you can't.
Right, but even with the linear animation, like the cloth does the follow through for you in Marvelous, so it kind of creates that secondary animation that's so nice.
Yeah, exactly. So when
that's so cool that they gave you that you had that to start with. You know, such a good starting point.
Oh yeah, they like Abdul. He did an amazing job just designing that in Clo. Like when you saw the details, like that. Stitches on the inside, like it was super detailed, so it was an amazing base to start from.
The thing I love the most about this spot is all the match cuts. To me, it's like a masterclass in match cutting, especially like going from the design of the jacket to the marble world. I mean, how did you line those things up so well? Like, did you just kind of bring in an image of the jacket over your viewport and then make sure like the forms lined up in the marble world, or what'd you do for that?
Oh man, what did I do for that? Good question. When I approached the project, right, the first thing was like trying to figure out like how I'm even going to tell this story. So I want to actually just talk about how I even got to the point of deciding to use match cuts to tell the story.
Totally.
So essentially, like they had certain ideas and certain things that they want to mention or talk about from the jacket. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I do this in a narrative sense? So that's the first thing I tried to do. Stitch the story together. So I kind of broke it down to 3 main sections. I think the first part is where you talk about like the design. They always said like, okay, well, we take design cues from architecture. It's like, okay, cool, this could be a section. Then they were talking about like the flexible panels on the jacket itself. So that could be another section. And then they then talked about the sustainability of the fabric. It's done in a very eco-friendly way. So I figured out, that could be another section. So like based on a bunch of questions I asked and the feedback I got, this was kind of the 3 things I narrowed down and decided to stitch that into a story. So then they had this idea of starting off with this sketch. I was like, oh yeah, that's really dope. Kind of like starting in this really, in this world that feels very familiar and going into this abstract place. Right. So then I had this idea like, okay, let's take that and kind of run with it. And knowing that I'm the only person that's going to be working on this visually, I needed to design it in a way where I could complete the project. So that's when I was like, oh, match cuts would be perfect.
Totally.
It can look very elegant, but it also instantly gives the viewer like where these design cues are taken from by juxtaposing it against the architecture, which is essentially where they're getting their design cues from. So that's how I ended up like figuring out that first section. And before I did all of this, it's like I had to do research, just visual research, kind of storyboarded it out, and just jumped into it.
Yeah.
But the actual,
how long did you spend on this job? Like how many months?
Yeah.
it's another good question.
Yeah.
So I think we started in April, just having those conversations. And I think I took probably 4 or 5 weeks in May, and that was like the first part of it. And then I took probably September, and I finished the part with all the fibers and stuff in the live action. So I think September and half of October. And granted, this was working alongside my full-time job, so like cash out full-time.
So
and
you
then
stopped for like 3 months then in like June, July, August, and then came back to it. Oh, that's cool. That's like kind of more rare for me. Like my jobs are always like just do one and then move on to the next thing, and then
But actually, so when I stopped in June, that was one part of it. It was like a completed film by itself. It was just the first 2 sections with the architecture and the flexibility. And that was for a competition. So, but then we wanted to do another like lengthier version as a brand film. So that's why I went in and made like that tail piece, and then we did the live action shoot, and we kind of brought everything together.
Nice.
Digital Castaway is. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say the last shot where you transitioned from CG to live action looked like really tricky. Like matching that lighting perfectly and getting the jacket to deform into that exact position.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know that there's like a bit of flexibility through the cross dissolve, but it just looks so smooth the way you transition there. So that was really impressive. Was that like a particularly hard shot to do, or what?
Yeah, well, I had to think about how I was going to do it conceptually, right? Because first idea, I was like, damn, am I going to like track the shot, animate it onto the shot? It's like, I could probably figure out something. So that whole thing is just a projection map. So
interesting. Okay.
So that whole shot's just a still. So it was easier when I could use a pose more from the dude walking till when Ali, who was the model, when he's standing up, and I just aligned that model to the projection, and then I animated the cloth to match him. So like when he's kind of doing those slight movements, that's just all me animating the model on the projection map.
Whoa,
so
that's crazy.
Yeah, add a little bit of camera wiggle, because I was like, to track this shot would be too much. So again, it's always just thinking about like the easiest way to achieve that result.
Wait, so this is maybe an idiotic question, but so they didn't have the jacket on set? There's no live action version, or you're transitioning from the CG jacket to the live action jacket, right? Or are you saying that you fully projected an image of the jacket onto like him walk? I'm super confused right now.
Oh, dude, no worries. So that shot where we're in this dark world, and then we transition. It's like a pullback, and you see the model, right? So the jacket is CG. Well, the entire scene is CG. It's a projection map.
Okay.
But the jacket there is like CG, and then the other 2 shots, the jacket's live action.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
So the imagery, so what I did, I just projection mapped the image, and then the jacket is CG on top of it.
Yeah, Dave doesn't have the latest version with that.
I guess not.
This is
for the presentation.
Yeah,
that's the one from NAB East. Yeah, go to the Vimeo.
Yeah, I was still working on it when I did the presentation. Actually, I was finalizing it that week, and that's when I finalized that presentation. But yeah, like if you brought it up, we could talk through it a little bit more.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, I was like looking through. I was like, I don't see that part you're talking about.
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Let me go. So is this at the end? This is near the end.
Very last shot. Yeah.
Pretty much the exact same place. Like where you see the jacket walking in the darkness, and then it cuts to like a live action shot. Yeah, exactly. That shot.
There here. Okay. Yeah. Here. Yeah. Oh yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so the model, the background, everything's projection. Everything's just a
okay,
still.
that makes a lot more sense. See, I thought that was also a live action shot, but it's just the most subtle motion, so you can get away with it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
really
So
smart.
you added the head, kind of the head move.
Yeah.
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 Dude,
That's really smart.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
You know what is criminally underrated in cinema? The vibrate tag. I use it.
I use it all the time. Like, that is my favorite way to animate anything. Lazy way.
Dude, I use it in Star Wars, like, just to add some organic motion to stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I use it all the time.
Yeah. And then, like, animate on top of that, use it as like a layer, or use multiple vibrate tags, one for like high frequency and one for like lower frequency, like for camera shake and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I like the shot too when you're going through that tunnel, like with the
triangles.
The triangles and like the focal length change at the same time.
That's my favorite trick is focal animation, especially for like concert visuals and stuff. Like when you really want to make something super impactful and like trippy, you just animate the focal length. Yeah.
And you've been animating like focal length combined with vibrate tags and stuff too. I've noticed on some of the stuff you'll do a quick zoom out, but then you'll add that vibrate tag for a second.
Yep.
That patented Ariew camera move.
Yeah, dude.
Ariew has the patent on focal length changes.
Yeah,
so
I
you have to
invented
give
it.
Them royalties.
Right. Yeah, that was never a thing. Vertigo or all those movies with the Zolly never happened.
Yeah, this is I think one of the first times I actually tried it on a project of mine, and I was like, it just fit for what I was going to do with that shot, just because I wanted like a dynamic way to enter the space and make it feel like what's happening here.
Yeah, and
Digital
I love the
Castaway
cut from the room going into that tunnel works really well, partially because of that cross of the paper, like you were talking about in your presentation, but just something about it, like even though they're two very different environments, just something about it really works and feels right. And it's weird because they are so different, like moving from that office space into the triangle tunnel, I
think a lot of that has to do with just the camera animation, right? And it's kind of like
matching the speed between the two environments. A
lot of that's like a match cut, and and you could use that in so many different areas as a vehicle to, instead of just doing like a classic directly connected transition match cuts, could be like super efficient way of animating.
Totally. Yeah, and it ends on that V shape, which then is reflected in the next shot of the V of the jacket, which is also super cool. That's the first cut that really sets up that whole match cutting progression throughout the piece, which is rad.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's another thing about just storytelling with visuals, right? It's kind of starting off from a place of mystery and ending in a place that's a little bit more solidified. It's like, why are we going through this tunnel? And then you see, oh wow, it lines up with the jacket.
That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're giving it more purpose rather than this would look cool. This would look cool.
Right.
Yeah, and that's something I guess lately I've been trying to preach, like the more thought you put into your visuals, then it really begins to make it a little bit more impactful when you do things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Digital Castaway was asking about how you go about pitching something like that, budget-wise. You've got this massive project you got to do. It's going to take you a good chunk of the year with everything else you have going on. How do you even begin to figure out how to quote something like that?
Oh man, that's an amazing question.
That's a tricky one too, yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, this project wasn't about the money necessarily. Like I really loved these guys and the stuff that they did. So like we kind of had conversations and we kind of came up with this plan where I could have like a partial payment in clothes and a partial payment in cash. And I was like, oh shoot, that was for me. But at the same time, like I've always wanted to do stuff in the fashion realm, so it kind of gave me the opportunity to create something really dope. I would say number one, I think it's about having a conversation, right? And knowing what your client can afford in the budget, and then you tailor the visuals to that budget. That being said, I think the visuals that they got was definitely exceeded the budget, but again, like
Because this looks like at least $50,000 to $100,000 job, if not more. I mean, if a studio were doing it, it would be like
right.
a couple
Easily.
100,000 or 500,000 or whatever, you know. But
easily.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like you have to kind of know why you're getting yourself into this project, and you have to make sure you know that. So then, like when you talk budgets and stuff, there's no surprises. That's super like setting those expectations at the jump. What was the other part of the question? Yeah, about figuring out the creative, right? You have to design a creative that you know you could finish and deliver by the deadline. Because then it's people, oh my gosh, I have these crazy ideas. I want to do this. And then you design this elaborate thing, and then you're doing it, and you're like, my gosh, I have to pare this down a lot to actually get it done. And then you promise the client this, and then you can't execute on that. So that's, that's something you have to keep in mind. But that was such a crazy time too, because I had a buddy that was staying with me that was like my best friend.
Oh, cool.
I came from Tobago and he was visiting, so then I had just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, it sounds like it, because you also were doing your full-time job, right?
Yeah, and obviously that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was tough, but we got it done. And I just wanted to make something in that realm, and I personally get excited to do this type of work. So then working with the client, just coming up with an understanding of what we're trying to do, and getting it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the biggest challenge for me on this one would have been like, because I'm not that great at drawing or planning out, like the elegant curves of that marble environment. Mm-hmm. And so like creating that attractive design that matches the jacket would be really a tough one for me. Like I'm okay, like once I've got an environment going, to like light it, texture it, do the camera animation, all that kind of stuff. But as far as like designing the actual environment that's very custom and creating those attractive forms, that would be definitely the hardest part for me.
Yeah, it's good that you bring that up, because just to explain that process a little bit, if I can't design something, that's when I just look at a ton of reference.
Right.
And then when I look at a reference, I begin to analyze, well, why does this feel like this? And then you kind of critically analyze that stuff. So, wow, the lines on this piece of architecture, the curves, the way the light hits it, you kind of have to break it down. And then once you have a real understanding of what makes that image pretty or look good, you begin to transport some of those things that you learned onto whatever you're creating. So for this, I kind of lined up the jacket with like a drawing I did, and looked at reference to kind of reinterpolate like a bunch of things I was seeing into that jacket. And I was like, okay, let's create a space based on some of these references and the jacket too. Because I mean, totally. I'm not an architect, so.
Right, exactly. That's definitely what I imagine was the hardest part is doing that. And yeah, I love how you like the subtle details in the marble environment, like the particles in the air and the slowly sweeping lights, or like these subtle rack focuses kind of like bring that architectural scene to life, because it's hard, because it's all static. You need to put in all these subtle touches to make it feel alive, That's such a great point, because again, it is static, right? And no one wants to see like just a still image. So I think that feeling of space and scale was important. Like when you saw that, I wanted it to feel grand and large. So typically when things look large, you have the room to make it move a little bit slower. So there's like a little bit more justification from that end. Definitely.
So yeah, that's just another thing I kept in mind. And I kind of wanted the music, who was done by my cousin Jordan and his buddy Lucas. They did such a great job with the audio to help like augment the visual. So I think those two things came into play.
Mm-hmm. And it's cool too, because it's like dynamic. It's not slow the whole time. It's just slow where it needs to be, where you want this epic, massive feel. But then there are these, during the other transitions and like flying down the tunnel, there's a lot of these dynamic camera moves, and then moving from the macro threads out to the jacket, like those kind of transitions you want to do really quickly with motion blur and stuff like that. But that creates dynamics in the piece, which is something that I see in like all of your work, is like it'll be fast and then it'll be slow and then back to fast, which creates this really cool dynamic contrast.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you keep doing one thing over and over again, it's not going to feel dynamic. It's going to get a little bit stale, and that's why it's important to just kind of divvy it up a little bit.
Totally.
And everything that you do in this piece, whether it's making something work with audio, whether it's telling a story, it's lighting, it's knowing how to do camera moves, how to tell the story with focal length, for example. All of this stuff is something that you have learned throughout your career. So what was that path for you? Where did you start? Where did you go to school? How did you learn these things? Did you go to school? Or did you learn are you self-taught?
Did you even go to school?
Did you even school, bro?
Question. So I started it as a hobby when I was a teenager. I started in Photoshop, maybe around 13, 14. Just playing around. I had no idea what I was doing. Then I completely dropped art. I wanted to be a software engineer when I was in high school. Then at 18, I rediscovered Photoshop. I was like, whoa, there's so many more resources on the internet to learn. Because back in 2003, 4, they had little to no resources to learn this stuff by yourself. And I just love learning things by myself. So when I was 18, just started messing around, discovered After Effects. Quickly after that, discovered Cinema 4D, and I was like, whoa, I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, so
real quick, our buddy Sage, who's now in the chat, also grew up in Trinidad. He's the only other motion designer that we know. He runs the C4D subreddit, and he's a super nice dude. You probably haven't met him yet because he's come out to NAB, but I don't think you were there. But you guys need to connect at some point.
Oh yeah, I mean, right after this chat.
Yeah,
have to make that happen. But no one was really doing anything like this. So in my mind, I was like, wow, this is so cool. No one. I didn't know anyone that was doing it, so I was just really interested in getting good. And back then, I just lacked capabilities, but I would just be like, screw it, I'm just going to try to make anything. I remember, I made this, I used to do Photoshop tutorials, and I would make a promo for my tutorial. And the first one I did, I made in Cinema and After Effects. It was super basic stuff. This is when Grayscale Gorilla was popping. This is 2010.
The good years.
Yeah, Nick really kind of taught me cinema from those basic things like Mograph. Anyway, so I eventually went to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. But I'll say this: when I was at SCAD, I never took I've never taken a 3D class. I've never, completed an After Effects class. There was one class I was doing in school, and then, I don't know, teacher wasn't great, so I ended up transferring out to that class. But what I did learn at SCAD, which I think was important, is design. Principles of design. That stuff is super important. Repetition, space, composition, storyboard, or story aspects. The arc of a story, where it should start off exciting, when it should get low, when it should get exciting again. How to really think and conceptualize a piece, techniques in doing that. One of my professors, Austin Shaw, who wrote the book Design for Motion, he has really great mythology on approaching design. And his teachings, I think, was super important to me in my career and how I approach design right now. And I think that's something I feel that's missing online as well. There's so
fundamentals,
many. Yeah, it's bro, you could make a photorealistic this, you could learn Octane, you could learn Redshift.
But if you don't have the design and storytelling principles down, then it could look like crap.
Right. And you can make a lot of cool stuff, but how to, stitch that in a way that you're kind of telling a story or you're helping a brand to promote itself, then that's where you need to connect those two things. So I'm pretty much self-taught when it comes to all the technical stuff. Just because the internet is such a great place to find resources, I don't think it makes sense to. Wait, what am I trying to say here? Because I did I did go to school. But if you're trying, I always say this: if you're going to school to become a really good motion designer, it's probably not going to happen. You can't depend on just school. To become great. It's just never going to happen.
You have to be a self-teacher, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to invest so much time into your craft personally, and just use, even if you're taking classes online, that's just a springboard. No class is going to get you to the point of being some of the, to the top tier of motion design. You just kind of have to really put in work, but also get connected with artists. So when I graduated, I worked at Imaginary Forces for almost 3 years. I got to work with guys like Jeremy Cox, who is he's
a badass.
Yeah,
he's an insane guru.
Yeah,
he actually taught me Nuke.
Oh, cool. I was going to ask about Nuke with the Star Wars short and whatnot. Because it's not many people in our industry know or use Nuke. I started to, because I started to get into the VFX realm. But then when I moved away from VFX, I was like, After Effects can do 90% of what I want. Or, I can render almost all of these effects in camera. And with you, you're doing this. To me, it's a little bit more old school. You're doing the Z depth pass, and I see it in the breakdown. But yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting.
We could talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
But no, there's good reasons why I use Nuke instead of After Effects. Because for a very long time I was comping After Effects. But yeah, we'll get to that another time.
Totally.
Yeah.
But yeah, just working with industry professionals, I think, is super important, just to see how professionals work. Because again, it's one thing to know what to do technically, but to function in a professional environment. Just when it comes to being organized, naming conventions, delivering stuff, creating stuff in a way which procedural, so you can change things on the fly, dealing with feedback, dealing with clients. That's, you don't get that with online classes. So it's the soft skills that
I think some of it you can. There's more and more fundamental training. Like places like School of Motion have more of that fundamental conceptual type stuff. Learn Squared has a lot of that as well. But it's a lot harder to find. It's much harder to find.
There's another
square. Yeah, there we go. But it's much harder to find training for those soft skills. And a lot of it is just learned on the job. You can learn it freelancing from home as well. I did to a large degree. I mean, I had a job for 3 years at a company and learned some things, but it was such a small company and they were all kind of the management was just dumb. They didn't know how to sell creative work. So it's it's not the same experience as going to Imaginary Forces by any means. But there's a lot.
It lets you know what you don't want. That's for sure.
Right. But yeah, it was enough of a taste to be okay, I don't ever want to do this again.
I guess forever. It's more so just working with clients and other artists. It's not even not even in a studio setting. Just nothing replaces working and
experience.
Experience, and that takes some time to build up. But again, it's not. You don't have to go to a studio to always learn all that stuff. You could. The motion design industry has changed so much from the time I started to now, and that's not even, I guess, that long. I started 2013, 2014 professionally. Quick. Yeah, and that's a whole conversation by itself. But that's, just to sum it up, I guess fundamental design and storytelling I learned at school, but all the technical stuff I learned on my own.
And when it comes to what you make, let's say you post it on Instagram, YouTube, wherever you post it, you immediately get the comments, "Whoa, that's so awesome! What render engine?" Right. Because
it's what camera. It's the same as super amazing DPs. They're what camera did you use?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the lighting. It's everything you learned. It's the lighting, texturing, the framing, the focal length of the camera, the story that you're telling. That's what made it good. It's not because
but that's a much harder question to ask than what render engine. What software?
Yeah.
Dude,
what software?
Yeah.
So on that note, I'm actually putting together something right now that'll be a video, hopefully that's not too douchey, that I'm going to release later on about the best render engine, because there isn't a best one. You have to choose a render engine that is going to fit what you're doing. And so that one you used Redshift. I think your Star Wars one used Redshift, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But you use Octane?
I did. Yeah, I used to.
You did. Okay. So I think when it comes to choosing your render engine, there are so many variables. So let's take the Star Wars one, for example, okay? Because this was your personal project. You didn't have to, and I don't know that you had to necessarily work with anybody else in the other project, but this was completely you. This is your choice. What made you choose Redshift for this piece?
Yeah, good question. So I guess come from a time where I had to learn renderers for necessity, just because they weren't options. So we started off, literally they only had the physical renderer. Then I discovered V-Ray. So 2011, 2012, if you wanted to level up your stuff, you had to learn V-Ray, and especially for the Cinema 4D version, they had little resources. I remember I had this PDF that I was learning from. It was a tricky process. Then like Octane came and just blew my mind.
Blew everybody's minds. That was like still for me the biggest jump in being able to make visuals faster and with a smaller team or solo,
100% agree. My work actually leveled up after I think GPU tech started to come out.
Absolutely.
Just because you could iterate faster, you could create more things, you could get more real-time feedback to make decisions. So I had some growing pains with Octane. One, because I was coming from V-Ray, I was just used to having a lot of options
and features,
like light linking, object inclusions, there's exclusions.
I mean, there's light linking now at the very least.
yes,
but it's not. Yeah, it's not as flexible as Redshift.
Right. What else? But also like a really strong multi-pass workflow.
Right.
So, and that was maybe, when did I start Redshift? I think 2016. So when I had the Redshift Alpha, for me it was like, whoa, I'm having Octane speed with V-Ray options, and it was super duper stable. So then for me, that was an instant draw because of how I like to work. I like to composite. So I love the flexibility of having a lot of multi-passes and having a lot of options.
See, to me, that's so weird because you don't see that a lot with people in their personal projects doing a lot of compositing, because you can get there all in render to some degree. And even like bigger studios like Artie Binchu often do very little compositing nowadays, because it's almost easier to break reality in the lighting within your shot if you're doing too much compositing. You can over composite and kind of destroy the realism,
you know how many nuke artists I see that do these light wraps to the extreme? I hate the light wraps, man. Too many light wraps. And looks like an episode of Jag.
Right. More and more, especially to move more quickly, I'm seeing people do everything in render. But here you're doing like even Ziebler in comp, which like I don't totally understand that, because you get a more realistic depth of field in render. So like, why are you doing this?
That's a good question. So that was literally only one shot. I do all my motion blur and all my depth of field in CG. The reason I didn't do it for that shot is just because the render times were insane. Because
I gotcha. Yeah,
that's so much stuff.
It was that super shallow with all the emission.
Stuff, and I just wanted to be able to control it because I was putting stuff together.
Right.
So I guess that's something that increases render time on Redshift as well.
Well, it does, in any render engine,
but there was something specific to that scene. I'm not sure if it was the displacement and stuff that I hadn't figured out. I was like, I'll just do this in comp because it's easier and I can adjust it. For me, how I approach things, right? I approach it like, I want to get out of 3D as soon as possible. So I'm only going to work to the point where I know it looks good in CG. I know where else I can push it in comp. That's how I've always, approached my projects. But typically, for some of the stuff I like to do in compositing, it would just be like a little bit silly of me to try to do it inside of CG to get those looks. Because
what are some of those things? Just curious. Like chromatic aberration is probably an obvious, easy one, like that kind of stuff. But
just like
flares and whatnot. But
it's not even that. For me, a lot of it is like color and levels.
Okay, cool.
Like if I want to make sure, especially on a certain shot, I want to focus on something. I want, I don't know, a certain trooper to stand out, or I want to like,
right, that makes sense.
I want him to have way more reflections. Or,
okay, that's interesting.
Or like,
so you're like using it to highlight certain things. I try to do that with. I think I just do that with lighting usually, but that's a really good idea to like, you know, bring out the
different
reflections
textures
more on your hero.
See, this is a good example with like that Stormtrooper. I added like the diffuse pass. It wasn't as gritty as I wanted it. So instead of like, I don't know, fudging with it in CG, I could just do a diffuse pass and I could dial that in exactly how I wanted in comp. It's just there's just so much more control. Exactly. So you could really tweak the look how you want it.
Yeah, you really brought out that specular there, and it really makes him like stand out. I won't use the word pop. Terrible word.
He pops so good.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with compositing, it just opens up a whole different level you could take your visuals to that you just wouldn't be able to.
Right.
But you just you just have to know like how far you want to push it mentally. And also just have like a good idea of the little nuances in an image to know like what makes it look good or not. And that's something I think it took me, like I'm still learning it with every project, just like the little levels or lights or lighting. It's all about training your eye over time. But like
those saber effects are really cool, by the way. Was that Houdini or did you?
Cool. That was a Houdini sim that I did. So like you would use Nuke for, I guess that type of stuff too when you want to bring up elements together. I guess while we're on this topic, I could discuss like why I use Nuke. This is After Effects.
Well, I was gonna say, like, watching the breakdown, it's not like you would expect this to be like, okay, he used C4D, Redshift, and After Effects, but then it's also actually it's Substance Painter, Illustrator for the HUD stuff, Houdini for the ground cracking and explosion and particles, and then Nuke for compositing. You know, so it's like you're using every software,
all the things,
all those things.
Yeah, it's like a kind of full VFX pipeline, which is a little bit different from the other stuff I do, which can be a little bit more stylized. So for this approach, I just needed all the tools to make it feel, you know, good. So, like, say for one of these shots, there's so many stormtroopers, there's so many things happening, and in After Effects, that's a bunch of pre-comps, there's a bunch of comps. There's no point where I could really get to see everything at once. And in Nuke, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain. Just talking about it because, you know, if you've used Houdini and you use that procedural node workflow, you kind of see the benefits of using nodes.
Yeah,
so and also when you use Nuke, you have to understand like your image in a different way because like your channels, you have to understand like what your channels are doing.
Pre-multiplying.
You're right, yeah. So it's kind of like how in Houdini you have to understand what your attributes are doing at every level. It's a similar thing in Nuke, but then you understand the power of that. So for a lot of this,
the software doesn't take anything for granted. It's all it's all very manual.
But this is the cool thing. Like once I got a script going, I use that as a base, and I just copy in my passes, and that serves as a base. And obviously, I need to tweak that depending on what shot I'm doing. But like it can save you a lot of time. It's also just really fun to work with. Like I'd be very frustrated in After Effects sometimes, just jumping from comp to comp, but just having everything in a node, like you hit one, accessible. Dude, it's just really nice to work with.
I mean, I could see working that way after using like Octane and Redshift, you know, and all these. There's tons of nodes in there too, and you can go crazy with the node trees and. It's so much easier. It's actually, people look at it and think it's hard, but it actually makes working much easier. So we got a question from the chat. They want to hear why choose XP versus Houdini, depending on the shot. Like, what benefits did you get from X particles versus Houdini, and why switch from one to the other?
Time. Yeah, due to iterate in Houdini, it just takes so much time and patience. Like one of those muzzle shots were like 20 million particles, and like to You have to
Damn.
cache that, render that.
Right.
It takes a while. So when I was doing that Blue Blast, it was like this week before I had to release it, and I was like, bro, I need to get this done.
Right.
So, XP. And
I mean, that thing looked amazing. It looked just as good as like the Houdini sims. It blends right in.
Yeah, thanks, man. I use the explosion effect stuff. I haven't really dived into it, but usually when you want something to feel like a little bit more wispy, more organic, you tend to base it off of like a simulation. So I had vectored those particles using that, and it actually turned out better than I thought. I'm like, wow, I should have used.
Yeah, XP advection is a really cool new technique that seems to have a lot of merit for sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever use? I know for like advection you wouldn't use turbulence FD, but do you ever use TFD for like, because it's so much faster because it's GPU based?
Yeah.
People, as far as I can tell, really prefer it to Explosia on the whole. Though obviously Explosia's benefit is that you can do the advection stuff with it really easily.
Yeah. Oh, the reason I haven't used turbulence is because I was too cheap to buy it.
Nice. Good reason. Yeah, I have it. I bought it, but I still haven't really used it much. I haven't ever had a project, weirdly, that really required smoke or fire yet.
And for me, it's a little crashy sometimes.
Oh yeah.
It's like it's just part of the deal, and maybe it's just me, but it's just like part of the deal. Like you're gonna have some crashes once you start getting up there. It doesn't feel as stable as going into Houdini, I guess. But
right.
And that was the other thing. I'm using Houdini, who arguably has some of the best pyro tools. So for me, it was like, why not use that? But just learning Houdini is such a task.
Yeah, you don't have the time necessarily.
Yeah.
And like this project sounds like it was super grueling because you were like sleep deprived. I mean, just last night I got 6 hours of sleep and I feel like shit. And that's probably like nothing. You're probably doing like, I don't know what you're like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night for quite a while.
It wasn't. I wouldn't advise it to anyone.
No. Yeah.
well, this was the thing. I put this date out December 13th, and sometimes you get to a point where past a certain time you just can't think about this project anymore. You can't touch it. And I've had this project on my hard drive since 2016, and I'm like, it's. Yeah, because I shelved it for a while to finish Hidden, and then I was like, okay, I need to get this done. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let 2019 slip by and not have this project completed. So it was very important to me to get this project done, just because it was also a goal that I had set for 20. So, and I spent so much time actually finishing the Abassi Rosbro project, more time than I anticipated, that I had less time than I wanted for the Star Wars project. Multiple times in that process, I was like, am I going to finish it? It kind of reminded me of when we worked on the Black Panther main title. There was multiple times I was like, are we going to finish it? But somehow you always end up getting it done.
Yeah, that's awesome. And congrats, by the way, on breaking 1 million views and almost hitting 2 million.
Almost two.
That's like a huge win for us little guys creating short films on our own. And obviously, like, that's also a really good argument as to why you should release something on YouTube versus Vimeo nowadays.
Right.
Yeah, and I think what Vimeo, I guess their strategy has been is changed. I don't think Vimeo necessarily now is a platform for mass views. I think that's where YouTube comes in, but the problem with YouTube
Well, it never really was. Like, Vimeo's never been a platform for mass views. It's more like when you want to get your work in front of other creatives or, like, quality eyeballs, basically.
Yeah.
And it feels more professional, but, this is a Star Wars fan film, so it makes sense to release it to the masses, YouTube.
And Vimeo has been so weird and spammy and, like,
they're annoying the shit out of me.
We were talking about it the other day, like they just...
I've got a pro account and they wouldn't let me switch down to plus because apparently I'm a business. And I had to go in and delete all of my, like, any video that was for a client or, like, that was locked. Like, they didn't like seeing that. Me using it as, like, a hosting platform. I'm like, dude, these videos are 7 or 8 years old.
That's
I haven't been using Vimeo for anything other than a creative portfolio for like 6 years. And even then I was on Plus. Like I was using it the way you don't want me to on Plus. And so yeah, they just refused until I like went and deleted all that stuff. So now I'm finally getting my Plus subscription back.
And even if you follow the
So
rules
annoying.
and if you downgrade your plan, they delete any of the videos that you uploaded on the other plan.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, are you serious?
Yeah,
so
they'll delete your videos.
They do that?
because their deal is like,
Wow.
oh well, you can't upload more than 5 gig a day or something stupid like that on a free account. So I went to Pro back on our old channel, right? And I put all the backlogs on there and all that, uploaded like tons of stuff a day. Well, any of that stuff that was on there was immediately deleted when I downgraded the channel to not pay for it anymore.
Right. Yeah, I mean, luckily, Plus and Pro have unlimited storage, I think. But it's just a cap on how much you can upload per week. But yeah, if you go from like Plus to Basic, they'll delete your videos because they won't host them, which is stupid.
Wow.
And it's no wonder lots of people are just kind of fleeing that platform.
Yeah, like I miss just going to Vimeo.com and seeing a stream of amazing motion graphic content. But now there's like this option with a bunch of different things. Like I'm not coming here to see my own work. I want to see other people's work.
Right.
I kind of miss that. But also like, even with Vimeo, you wouldn't get like 1 million views, but like you would put something up, you might get 50K, 100K, 150. But now I see like amazing title sequences with 3K views.
I know, right? It's so sad.
And I'm just and I'm trying to figure out, aren't people just watching stuff on Vimeo anymore? So I kind of use Vimeo these days more so to host like my higher quality viewing content online. But the problem with YouTube, if you have to get decent quality, you have to upload stuff in 4K because the 1080p compression is...
Did you render all of the Star Wars in 4K?
No.
Yeah. No. Nice. You just like did an upscale or what?
So there's this amazing software called Gigapixel, which does
I've heard it, yeah.
Yeah, it does an AI.
I mean, Octane has now an AI upsampling algorithm built in, but and it's like Gigapixel, but to me it makes it really crunchy looking, and like I don't like how it's. I don't like the AI denoising, and I don't like the AI upsampling either.
Yeah.
They both drive me crazy. Yeah.
Have you tried Gigapixel?
I haven't yet.
Dude,
no, I should try it.
It's because like I would do a 1-to-1 just to see like what's the differences on the video. It's really good. The key thing is you can't do a Gigapixel up-res with like certain effects on it, like chromatic aberration and noise. So what I would do, I would run.
So do that afterwards.
Yeah, so I'd do the comp and just export without like noise, color correction, all that stuff. Up-res it, then I'll put like chromatic aberration, noise, and all that stuff on top of the up-res version.
Nice, that's a great tip.
Yeah, because then like if AI is trying to calculate chromatic aberration, it's just going to look terrible. It's no.
Right.
It's
That's
all
interesting.
Like, so that's kind of like my approach. But it's sad that you have to go for that extra step to get good-looking quality. But it doesn't make sense to spend all of this time making stuff and then have compression kill you in the end.
Yeah, and there was an article, and I wish I've never been able to find it again because I didn't save it, about how many people are actually upscaling even for full length like feature films, because just nobody has the time to render 4K currently. It's just such a massive time suck.
And this is the thing too. If you just took a video and literally scaled it up 200% in After Effects to 4K, it looks better than the 1080p version that you would upload. So like,
it'll give you better compression ratio and whatnot.
Yeah, because there's more pixels to work with. And kind of curious how many people are actually doing that instead of, using AI or actually rendering 4K. Right. But Gigapixel, for me, has been an amazing option for 4K and that type of stuff.
Nice.
And it's $99?
Yeah, it's a steal.
I need to do that because I'm rendering some 4.5K stuff right now for Excision, and it's super slow. And I've got 14 GPUs at this point, but it's never enough.
Holy bro, 14?
Yeah.
Oh, you're flying right now.
I just built a new box with 4 2080 Ti, so that one's much faster. The others I've got another 2 boxes with 4 1080 Ti's each, and I'm thinking about replacing everything with just 2080 Ti's.
Yeah, those cars are
RTX everything.
RTX everything. The RTX is weird. It's been causing some like major like errors for me. Like when I turn it on, it like the lighting will be completely inconsistent and it'll look like cutouts of like I've got this steampunk city on some cliffs, and when I turned on RTX, they just looked like they were cutouts sitting on top of something. Like it was a bad composite. Yeah. So there's some weird stuff. I don't know with maybe the ways the RTX cores are processing, or maybe it's just like the software is not quite up to speed yet and it's an early build of RTX, so we'll see if it gets better. It's not true for every scene. It's just certain scenes of mine, like the lighting completely changes.
I'm curious, how has RTX on Octane been for you?
I used it successfully once and it like knocked a minute or two off of my render times per frame, which was amazing, and like got me to a deadline much faster. But then when I turned on motion blur, it like completely shat itself, and
wow.
you know, like, but that was just maybe an Octane bug. Like it's still really early. So we'll see, like in the next stable build, maybe it'll be a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting that that's going to be, oh, thanks, Dave.
Dude,
there's my,
gotta bring up
there's my sweet new house and my
stuff, bro.
my new stuff. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, you moved, by the way. This is the
moved.
first time you've been on since you moved
Is
to
it?
Colorado.
Really? Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Or wait.
You might be right. You're right.
Oh,
'Cause
Christmas.
the last one was
still,
Christmas. I was still in San Diego. Yeah, love the new house. It feels like we live in a mansion. It's really bizarre. But yeah, prices out here are so much more affordable. Like I was telling you guys earlier, we lived in an 800 square foot house and it would have sold for $2 million in San Diego because of its closeness to the beach. And like you can't get away from like, you know, the prices out there. So yeah, that was basically the reason for the move, was just we wanted to buy a house. And we're in this little town called Castle Rock, which is like 40 minutes south of Denver, but it's still close enough to get to Denver and everything. Only sad thing is that there's like no good restaurants in this town. Like there's outlets and there's all sorts of like stores and but the restaurants are all just chains. There's not really any like good local food. But that's okay. That just means we have to drive a little bit further to Denver and that we cook more, which ultimately means I get less fat. So
yeah, that's always good.
It's always good.
Yeah. Speaking of RTX, yeah, I've never used it successfully in Redshift.
I was gonna ask if it's working yet or not.
Every time I use it, it slows my renders down. I've never used it successfully.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's just, it needs time for the software to catch up to the hardware.
I've heard that it depends on what kind of things you're rendering. Like with Octane, it doesn't help with volumetrics at all. So if you've got lots of volumetrics in your scene, then you're no good. And I think it works better with like interior scenes like this. Maybe the scene that I had going that it worked really well with was this kind of dark warehouse, where maybe it needed a lot of GI bounces or something, and it calculated that kind of thing much more quickly, because that makes sense being the whole ray tracing. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we have to wait and see. It's like, because you're buying an RTX card is a significant investment in comparison to a 1080 Ti. It's almost double the price.
Yeah, it's expensive.
But then, I mean, it's obviously faster. But,
I mean, by itself, yeah, it's like 1.5 times faster.
Right.
And it will be much faster in the future. So it's kind of like future-proofing to some degree.
Exactly. Yeah. But I have 3 2080 Ti's and even faster, so... At least we have that, but I'm just curious to see how this RTX technology is going to develop over time.
Yeah, totally. One other question I had about Redshift as a total tangent, like out of core, does that work well in Redshift? Because in Octane, it religiously crashes. Like I'll get, like when I get to out of core geometry or textures, it'll go like maybe a gig over, but then I can never send to picture viewer without it just crashing and dying. Yeah. Dude. Dave, have you ever had any success with out of core with Octane?
I tried it when it was first available, had some issues, and then I turned it off and I didn't try it again. Just because, it was crashing. I'm sure it's fine now, or maybe
no, it's not fine.
Now, I mean, apparently not. I don't.
I keep
know
wondering if it's like my RAM speed or like RAM timing's affected, or the stability of the RAM. I don't know.
See, for me, I thought it had something to do with my card, because I had like a 1060 sitting in there, and then I turned that off, and then I thought, okay, well, maybe it has to do with the other machine because I'm using two machines, and maybe that one's not handling out of core correct. I didn't. It's one of those things where you try it, and it's like, oh, I don't have time to mess with this right now. So,
Billy said that Redshift constantly or goes out of core constantly. It's like 24/7 going in and out of core, that's crazy. I didn't know that. He says it's super awesome actually, as long as you aren't on a brutally old slow CPU.
Dude,
so that's interesting.
I'm actually more surprised when Redshift does crash because it happens so rarely. It is super duper stable.
That's weird.
Yeah,
I worked in Redshift recently on a job, and I had a fair number of crashes. It didn't seem like that much more stable to me than Octane.
What?
But maybe I was pushing it. I don't know. Maybe I was pushing it to do weird things.
Yeah, some people are like, "Oh, Redshift never crashes."
I'm probably
Same
using
thing with Octane.
Redshift like I use Octane. I was doing like an outdoor project, and I was mixing tons of displacement maps like on top of each other, and it slowed. I mean, that in and of itself slowed down so badly because that's the one thing about Redshift that I don't like as much as Octane is the displacement. That's kind of a deal breaker for me on certain projects because it like Octane has that magical texture displacement that's super high res, crazy fast, and doesn't take up much more VRAM. Whereas when you switch to like vertex displacement, even in the new Octane, and you start tessellating and subdividing, it gets super slow and it takes up tons of VRAM. And that was my experience with Redshift. At the time I didn't realize there was a freeze tessellation button, which would have helped. But so I was like doing the global override to just turn off displacement entirely until I was ready to do the final render. But yeah, that kind of drove me a little bit crazy. But then again, not all your projects have, like Sekani, I can't think, like the three big projects we're talking about, like you weren't using a ton of displacement, were you?
Hidden had a bunch of displacement in the cloth.
Oh, it did? Okay. In the cloth. Okay, that's interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah. The Abasi Rosborough, there's displacement on the cloth there as well too.
Oh, cool.
But
nice.
yeah, I had to drop like the minimum geo length to like 0.0 something. It was pretty small, but I agree in regards to Redshift displacement being slower. You just kind of have to know how to navigate around it, but it's definitely not as fast as Octane.
Right. I mean, it's more technically accurate. Like vertex displacement works better. You don't get the issues on the edge seams and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I feel like when I crash Octane, I know why it crashed. Like I know, okay, it crashed because I was an idiot and I jacked this up to like some setting, and all of a sudden there's 40 million polygons in my scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been having issues with Octane crashing a ton on 2019 1.5 with like textures, just the wrong textures or something, and it freaks out. And this doesn't happen on version 4. So I've been having to like re-render a lot of my textures. It'll be like, I don't like this JPEG. I'm going to crash on this JPEG. So I'll have to go in and I'll go into the texture manager, make it all local file names so it disconnects itself completely. And then one by one, or like small groups at a time, reconnect textures, crash, and then like go in and re-export from After Effects as PSDs or JPEGs with different file names. And then it'll magically be fine.
Yeah.
That's part of knowing. Yeah. It's part of knowing your software. You know the intricacies of whatever render engine that you're most familiar with, you know?
Yeah, and exactly.
Sometimes you just put up with bullshit.
Yeah, just like what Billy is saying here, like RS displacement is definitely not as nice because you have to pump in a lot of geo into the mesh for your RS tag, and I 100% agree with that. You really have to have a lot of geo via the tessellation settings.
That's funny. Raphael Rao is in the chat, and he says he's had the same texture crashes. So hopefully they're working on that, because that's like pretty much a game-breaking bug there. Because it'll be the same exact scene between my two PCs, exact same version of Octane, and one computer will be able to render it and the other will not. And it's like, that's just dumb.
Oh yeah, I also want to mention, dude, Silverwing is one of my heroes, man.
Oh, he's one of my heroes too, dude. Yeah, he's the best.
Dude.
Yeah.
He was doing these insane V-Ray renders all like in 2011, 2012. I was like, whoa, how is this stuff looking so good? So huge shout out to you,
he's a
man.
master of like shaders and the whole like what's going on behind them with the actual rays, and he's the best at explaining things like ray
Like
epsilon
the
and all the things going on
behind it.
under the science behind
Yeah.
it. He's such a master at that. And then like creating the most perfect looking shaders that are super realistic.
Yeah.
His attention to detail is definitely amazing.
Them shaders, though.
Them shaders though.
Yeah. I mean, I can just speak from my experience in Redshift. I tend not to get many crashes. Like even when it does crash, I'm like, oh, what happened? Like just because it doesn't happen as often. Star Wars in particular, I think it worked quite well. I used a bunch of RS proxies.
Nice. That proxy workflow looks really good, and that's definitely an area that shines better than Octane.
Yeah.
Octane has the ability to do like Orbex similar proxy workflow, but it's not as intuitive, and I've never like reached for it yet.
Yeah.
But the proxy workflow in Redshift seems really, really good.
Yeah, it's nice. The instancing with X particles is really it's nice and flexible. There's also instancing with the matrix object, which is pretty nice. But what I see ultimately, I don't think like one render is better than the other. It just depends on how you prefer to work. I think Octane looks better right out the box. You have to kind of noodle with Redshift to kind of get the look you want. But ultimately, if you understand rendering, lighting, and compositing, you could probably get the look that you're trying to get. So you just have to know what vehicle you want to take you to the finish line and which one makes you feel most comfortable.
And for people like you that are doing compositing, like Redshift wins hands down. It's got like puzzle mats, and the AOV manager's great and way more intuitive, and you can have like duplicate passes with different file types, and stuff like that.
Oh, another huge thing, crypto mats, huge.
Oh, right.
Bro. I can't. I haven't rendered a puzzle mat in forever. Like crypto mats.
Really? Cool. Nice.
Crypto mats are amazing.
So that way you could just split up everything and do all your color tweaking that way.
Yeah. Like you literally don't have to do anything. You just select crypto mat, and then you have you create a mat from anything in Nuke. And
Nuke is better at handling crypto mats than After Effects. It's kind of more intuitive like interface for that too, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's really fast. It's really quick. Nice edges. It's next level stuff.
You don't even need a plugin for that, do you?
You do.
It's just kind of. Oh, you do?
Yeah,
but it's free, right?
Yeah, it's just something you download and install it. It's
because trying to navigate through that plugin in After Effects using the EXR thing and then selecting. It's so
it's
janky
in After Effects. Yeah.
Do you guys use EXRs when you comp in After Effects? If you do any comp at all?
I don't almost comp it. I do comp to just do transitions. Like right now, I've got like a seamless camera that's going through a bunch of different steampunk type scenes, and I'll have like a kind of aperture iris thing open and just use that as a cut point to transition and like just render alpha behind it and whatnot. But just the simplest compositing lately, I haven't been doing. So no, never EXRs anymore. Like I know, like I used to do more VFX work, and I would do the whole, 32-bit. Like I'd even do log, and all that shit. But
well, it's not going to be in a feature length film.
Yeah,
it's going to be. It's going to get the compression, compress the crap out of it, and it's going to go on YouTube, and everybody's going to watch it on their phone, and like you're, like, why even worry about that level of control,
right?
Unless you have to have it,
I mean, it's cool if you want to like reel in the overbrights in post and stuff. Like that's what I'll use it for sometimes, and like if you're rendering out a depth pass, then you want to use at least half float EXR so you can have access to those values, and change it.
It's like if you're a photographer and you're shooting in RAW instead of JPEG.
Yeah, of course.
There's obvious advantages.
But there's also that same like idea of like getting it all right in render, which is my personal preference. Like I like having just one IPR to see everything, including the color decisions, like bringing in LUTs, tweaking like the curves and gamma, like having it all in that one window is to me much more helpful, because like then like you're more like a DP that way. You're kind of like baking in your looks because that's what you're going to go with. And just making that decision right on the spot, to me, is faster. It's less flexible, but it's faster.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I don't know. I need options. Especially when people come to changes. Oh, can you tweak this? Can you tweak that? Happened to me on a job this week. I was like, oh yeah, I could just slide this in. I could tweak this here. It also just depends on like how you like to work as well. but the renderers look, so good right off the bat. It's like,
Yeah.
I remember I walked in, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. It looks good.
Right, exactly.
What am I going to tweak?
With like what you're tweaking, I mean, a lot of the time it could be a color, but yeah, sorry, I forgot what I was saying.
Yeah, this is the thing.
It's like you can't like tweak the shader itself. You can't tweak the glass or whatever. Like if they come to you with a decision about changing the color, then yeah, you can do that. You can put enhance something a little bit, but how much can you really tweak it in post if they want you to change a glass to a metal or something like that? Then you're screwed. You have to re-render.
Yeah.
So like for me, the kind of changes that requests that I get, I have to re-render the whole thing anyway.
Right.
So it's like I don't usually reach for compositing. Like I don't usually have clients that ask for these itty bitty tweaks to the color or something that I could even do in compositing.
Yeah, I guess for me it's more so I just like the look I get after a good old comp session.
Right, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Just like enhances it and makes it even more like, I don't know if hyper real is the word, but like
It depends on how much you like doing comps too.
Yeah. I enjoy it, but like I don't know, it takes so much extra time, and I'm always trying to get the jobs done. Like I'm trying to hit that balance between quality and time, pushing out visuals quickly and moving on to the next thing, and not getting so obsessed in the details that I'm like Cornelius Domrich over here or something,
Yeah, it's interesting because an argument can be made, because essentially you're doing similar things, but you're doing it in CG and I'm doing it. I might be cutting down my time in CG and doing it in comp. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it.
No,
I think
definitely not.
Yeah, it's just however you prefer to work. The only problem with me is that it gets super heavy because I'm rendering like 32-bit EXRs. And then
that'll take up a lot of room on your computer.
Yeah. I just literally.
I mean, even like I'm just rendering.
I got a new hard drive, right?
Nice. Yeah, I'm just rendering normal PNGs, and like the 4.5K PNGs are like taking up tons of room. Like each project lately has been like a couple hundred gigs. I can't imagine doing multipass with that. It would just be like a terabyte or more per project.
At least they're not TIFF files.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't use TIFFs anymore because they're just overly
huge.
large. Yeah.
But David, I feel like you do longer format videos with higher resolutions too.
Maybe that's true. Lately, I've been doing a lot of concert visuals, and like the Z stuff that I did was like a total runtime of like 16 minutes. So yeah, it's a lot of CG.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 16 minutes?
Yeah, 16 minutes. It took 4 months, but yeah. And it's not like super, I mean, some of the shots were really detailed, but other stuff was like maybe a little bit easier. I'm not putting as much attention to the details as the spots that you're doing. So like doing a spot like what you did would take me just as long, if not longer,
Yeah, just so I guess on a side note, I'm just curious if you guys wanted to discuss just I'm always curious. I always like discussing the states of the industry and just how things have been changing. And then like it's so different now for someone that's coming into the industry for the first time versus like a while, like let's say 5-6 years ago.
Because it's interesting.
Because clients more so wanted to work with studios and agencies, and now clients are reaching out to artists directly.
Right. Yeah, and I'm seeing people jump right into Octane and Cinema or Redshift and just skipping After Effects entirely. Like lots of people don't even know any compositing or any After Effects whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really an amazing time to be a motion designer. There's just so much opportunities from just every different industries. Everyone needs motion design in some sense. There's more and more screens coming, more and more platforms. Everyone needs content to put those things on, and obviously we need people to do it. And I think it's cool that and I think GPU rendering has a part to play in this, that you could create high quality content without requiring like $100,000, $200,000 render farm to
absolutely
get that stuff done, which I think is
That's why I keep obsessively building my own render farm.
Yeah.
It's the moneymaker.
Man, you just can't get enough power. That's the
No,
thing.
I mean, it's still the biggest bottleneck is rendering always. Just waiting
It's
on
an
like I've got to
addiction,
render. It is.
Card
I've got a
addiction.
render right now that's like I've cranked the samples maybe too much, but it's just enough so it's not like horribly noisy. And it's going to take like 12 days to render on this one machine. I'm going to have to like have another machine contribute, but like just that one shot, it's like, you know, it's 750 frames, but it's taking like 20 minutes a frame because it's like got all these little lights. That's one thing that Redshift does, I think, a lot better than Octane is when you have like, I have like over 150 lights in this one scene.
Oh my gosh.
To light all the little parts of the city that I've blocked out. And it doesn't look like I do, but yeah, that just drives Octane crazy because it's all these small lights. They're not
Do
in
you
the
turn
volume
on
or
AI
anything.
lights though?
I tried, and it seemed like it helped for some stuff, but it didn't. I've never
Makes
gotten
a big
that to
difference
work.
for me.
It doesn't really for me for some reason. I don't know. Yeah.
I was going to ask if you use a deadline, but I think Octane is really good optimizing speed with rendering with multiple GPUs on one frame versus Redshift likes to split those frames between the GPUs. So
Interesting.
yeah, so I tend to render like one frame per GPU instead of like
Oh, that's neat.
4 GPUs per
It's
frame.
not even something you can do in Octane.
Well, I usually do it through deadline, which is nice.
Right.
Once you
Well,
do-
I don't know if I mean Octane I think technically works with deadline, but I think it's maybe a bitch to set up. The only
That's what I've
instances
heard.
I've heard
It's
people
always a
using
bitch
it
to
really
set
well.
up. Let's be clear.
Right.
No, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think you can set it up in there. I've never tried it myself with Octane, but I think I'm sure you could probably do it that way. Or you could be just like me if I want to render like 2 sections, I'll just remote into the other computer and open the same file and
open the same project. Yeah, that's the ghetto way to do it that I do quite frequently. And that actually does ultimately save you a bit of time because when you're network rendering, just the transfer of the scene every frame will slow you down to some degree.
Yeah, but I think Octane is really good at rendering a frame with multiple GPUs versus Redshift. Because Redshift, there's a bottleneck when you have to like load the scene or do the pre-processing, and that's CPU based.
Right, it takes so long to process the textures in Redshift. That's another thing.
Right, so if you split that per frame, then you're splitting that task on your CPU 4 times. So then you're using more of your CPU's power. Which dramatically helps the process. Yeah, I get like a significant speed boost. If you're using Redshift and you're not using Deadline, you are robbing yourself of time.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. When
I haven't like had enough jobs in Redshift really to warrant that yet. I just did some look dev like style frames for already been chewed and like, you know, actually, I think the only times I've been forced to use Redshift were for already been chewed. And now maybe they're switching to Arnold. Who knows?
Well, this is the thing. I'm really keeping my eye out on Arnold as well as that GPU becomes faster. I mean, ultimately, I just need a fast tool that looks good. But Arnold's development, Chad Ashley has been singing the praises of Arnold for so
and there's
long.
looks like there's some good training now on GSG Plus for Arnold. So probably watch that.
I actually used I switched from V-Ray to Arnold before I got into Octane.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
but Arnold
so
was...
you're somewhat familiar. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I've used it before, but it was so incredibly slow. I'm talking about when it first came to Cinema 14.
Right.
My gosh, it was slow.
And you have to have that CPU. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is before like Threadrippers or anything of the sort came out. This is, so it was a different
now
time.
I could actually do it because I've got a 24-core Threadripper in one of these guys. So
dude, that's nuts.
Yeah.
So that could actually, but it's still not going to be as fast as the GPU. So
yeah, exactly.
Right, and if you want to add another one,
sim,
buy a whole new machine.
Yeah, you got to buy a whole new computer, or build a new machine. Yeah. And I mean, it's fine if you're using a render farm, but you know.
Random question in Redshift: is there a way to see how much VRAM you're using currently? Because you know how Octane has that really nice readout for how much of your scene you're using up, or does Redshift not work in quite the same way? Like Billy was saying, it's like constantly going in and out of core, which confuses the hell out of me. I don't understand that.
It tells you how much VRAM all the cards take up at any point in time when you're rendering, or even when you're using it, it tells you.
Maybe I haven't seen that readout for some reason. I wasn't able to find it, but maybe it's just some stupid easy thing.
Yeah, I feel like it always pops up for me, but I can always point you to it.
Cool.
So the thing you were talking about with like people coming into the industry, how the industry's changing, all of that, the Barton video with Chris Do the other day, they were actually talking about the fact that there are so many tech companies that are finding these artists that they really like and bringing them in, having them work their production department, their graphics department, motion graphics, whatever it is, because it's cheaper than like finding an agency to do all that. They're like, well, we're just going to make our own. We're going to cut the middleman, and we're going to bring somebody in. So there's all these tech companies now, Facebook, Google, all these different people who are bringing people in-house. So they'll find talent on Instagram or something like that and, vet them and say, hey, why don't you come work for us for a bit? And obviously you're doing that. What do you think about the fact that they're just doing it on their own now?
I think it's smart. I say it's a great time to be a motion designer, but I think it's a really tough time if you're a studio or like a small studio. It depends. I mean, like I guess a mid-sized studio. If you're a mid-sized studio, yeah.
Define mid-sized studio, because I guess already been shoot. I guess what you'd say is small.
That's
small.
I would say that's a small studio.
Okay, cool.
Above 30.
Yeah,
above 30.
I would say mid-size is probably around 30-ish. You have two options: either you get bigger or you get smaller. But if you're in the middle, I think it's tricky because then you have to get a certain amount of work to keep the lights on.
Right.
When you're smaller, the overhead is not much. When you're bigger, you can just take in so many jobs to just keep money rolling in at all times. I think it's smart because those companies can pay their artists more than a studio and an agency can, and then the business itself is saving money. And as an artist, you begin to work with the clients directly. You technically are the client. And then there's this level of bureaucracy you don't have to go through. Now, it gets tricky because the work depends on the brand that you're working for. If you're working at Apple, you're only going to be doing Apple stuff, and you have to fit it into their aesthetic. So that's something you have to think about. The same thing with Facebook, same thing with Cash App, Squarespace, wherever you're working at.
Right. So yeah, that's a good question. Why are you working at Cash App when you could be? I mean, I assume you could be making a lot more money freelancing, have more creative control, be doing all your jobs remotely. Is it the like going to this community and hanging out with your friends at work thing? Or is it, do they just treat you super, super well and there's enough like extra perks to be doing Cash App or, why do you prefer it to freelance? I guess you're doing a bit of both too.
Well, funny, I work less now that I'm at Cash App.
Okay.
It's less stressful because think about it like this, right? When you're freelancing, you have to be thinking about what's the next job. Sometimes you're working pretty late. You could be working terrible hours. And then people say, oh, well, I could just take as much time off as I want. But then when you're taking...
Then you don't.
Well, it's that, and you're not getting paid while you're taking that vacation. So it's like
that's true.
There's that anxiety. It's like, oh man, I'm chilling, but I'm not making any money, so I have to get back to work eventually. The good thing about tech companies, a lot of them, they have really great benefits. So say Cash App, they have a really good vacation program. I think it's unlimited. You can take as much vacation as you want.
Wow. What? That's crazy.
Wow.
That's cool.
I mean, you obviously don't want to abuse that, but it's a pretty common thing among tech companies now.
In practice, how much vacation time do you take?
That's a good question. Maybe. I
don't expect you to know that off the top of your head.
Yeah, I don't know. I might, when I was freelancing, I would probably take a month a year. I would still work 11. And at Cash App, I'd probably do the same. I'd take a month, 4 weeks, or a month and a half, tops. I actually have to get better at taking vacation just because.
Right. Too much of a workaholic.
Yeah, this year is actually one of my focuses to. Yes.
Totally.
Financially, I probably Yeah, I probably would make more Cash App. Plus, I could freelance. So then, like from that standpoint, it makes sense too.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It's just yeah, like when you're working at studios too, it's you have to worry about getting paid 30 days after the work,
Yep.
running down checks.
Yep, that sucks.
That type of stuff. So it's like all those things kind of add up. And if you freelance at tech companies, Facebook, Apple, they have pretty good day rates. So even if you want to stay freelance and work with tech companies, you probably
they got that venture capital money, so they're like,
Right.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting because, as far as I knew before, the most opportunity to make money is freelance or doing something completely different, like selling products, selling tutorials and whatnot. But that's cool to know that there's now this whole tech division, if you want to, or that pay very well.
And the culture, that tech culture mixed with doing motion graphics seems like it will be pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think that also just depends on what company you go to because I think the thing that ultimately made me join Cash App was they have such a unique culture. Like if you see the work that we do there, it's very fun, it's very colorful, there's not a lot of bureaucracy. The people I work with are great. We have like a really cool way of approaching the work. And it's very unique for fintech in general and just tech. And I was like, wow, this is, you're kind of helping to build something, build a brand versus you're just going in and being a helper and then you dash when the job is done.
Right. That's definitely true of a lot of the freelance jobs. It's like, well, I'm just here for my day rate and I'm, going to peace out as soon as this is over and I don't really care what happens to the project afterwards. Like that's not the best feeling.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you have a little bit more stake in what you're doing. So that's always good too. And I think the work-life balance that you get, and again, this also depends on the culture and the company, but at least for me, I have really good work-life balance and I still get to do like really good work. So it just felt like the best move for me to make right now on all fronts. Like I couldn't have finished the Star Wars if
It funded your ability to do Star Wars to some extent, is what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, and it's just more so over time. Because it's more so about getting my work done at Cash App. And like I think 2018 when I was freelancing, like the work I was doing was meh, even at studios. But all the work I made in 2019 at Cash App, I really enjoyed.
That's cool. That's awesome. So you don't feel like you're plateauing. You're still challenged, and it's still creative work. Because that would be my fear of going to like some tech giant is just making some boring animations, not learning anything, and then plateauing in my job, and then no longer having time to make the really cool stuff on the side. Because I'm personally very bad at pushing myself to do personal work. That's not something I've ever really succeeded in doing at the, even on this job that I'm doing right now that's super fun. It's every new scene I start, it's like this anxiety attack of what direction am I going to go? How do I build it? Like, what's it going to look like? And even though it's fun, it's still super challenging and hard to get started a lot of the time. So I don't know how you personally push yourself every day to, even at the end of a day at Cash App, then go home and crunch on some, passion projects.
I think it's, just where you want your work to be. Like I still see the work some of these artists are doing over in London and Europe, and it's like, oh my God, it's so insane. I want my work to eventually.
It's just that drive to be that good.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really like doing the work, motion design, even at Cash App. It's very much about you motivating yourself to do really good work, and you want to do good work, right? Because there, like, you get to pitch a concept, you get to create things that you want to create. So the work's only limited by your ability to create it, which is really cool. So if you want to make something insane, pitch it, create it, and that's the type of environment that I think brings the best out of artists when they're able to express themselves.
Totally. I mean, it depends on the artist. I know some people that prefer being given direction 100% and like hate have massive blank slate syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, so creating the concept themselves isn't what every artist wants. Personally, that's what I would want.
Right.
I like doing that the best, you know, owning it all myself. But it depends on the personality. Yeah.
And that's not everyone. Like, if you don't like doing that, there's obviously people on the team that you would brainstorm, do the concept for you. You could just execute.
Right.
The way we work is super malleable on the team. But again, for someone who kind of likes creating stuff and coming up with ideas, then that works. And then there's times when I don't want to come up with an idea, just kind of tell me what to do. Then there's also those types of opportunities as well. Cool. So someone with a question about what advice I would give to a young creative youngster who struggles with budget. I mean, is that budget in buying products or
buying PC components and software is what.
Yeah, that's what
it
they're
says.
saying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's like I've gradually built up my PC arsenal over the years and software over the years. Just as you get more, you know, like decent paying jobs, you just reinvest in yourself, whether it's like buying tutorials to teach yourself new software, or whether it's buying hardware, or it's just part of running your own business.
I mean, look at Cinema 4D, for example. You know, it's monthly, so you know what you have to make monthly to pay for that, and probably Photoshop. I mean, that's a good start, right? And you could start working on that, and then you take that monthly price and say, okay, well, I mean, honestly, one gig is gonna pay for that.
And
you know, and you just have to like let it pay for itself.
The more software and the more hardware you have, the more you can charge as well.
Right.
So, you know, that's another thing, is it kind of feeds into itself. It makes you faster especially if you're doing 3D. The more machines you have, the faster you can render all your stuff. So, and faster also typically means more money. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're not making a lot of money, then you just have to think about ways in your life to cut back. Do I need that coffee today? Do I, you know what I mean? It's just no way around it. Like, you kind of have to have some capital to invest in yourself to get the tools necessary to start the business. It's just no way around it.
Totally.
I know you got other work you got to do today, so I want to make sure we can get to everything here.
Yeah, there's like lots of stuff. We still didn't even like finish talking about like his Star Wars short, really.
Yeah. Well, I have a good question for you on this, and you know, people say when you're creating your own stuff and you're putting stuff out there, you know, put out the kind of content that you want people to pay you to do. So my question is, it's gotten a lot of popularity. Has anybody reached out from Star Wars, Disney, whoever? You know?
No one. I mean, yes, a lot of people.
Are you slated to direct the next Star Wars movie?
Yeah.
Oh, you let the cat out of the bag? No, okay. No. Well, no. a lot of people have hit me up with like various things, but nothing I'd particularly be interested in. This, for me, Star Wars is more like a fun thing to do, but also a showcase of skill in storytelling and technical talent to eventually add onto my portfolio. But I wasn't necessarily banking on getting, I don't know, a bunch of different from this project in particular.
Right.
But have you heard from them, like, good job or anything like that?
Nothing from Disney.
Wow.
Nothing at all. But I'm not sure if they've seen it or not, you know, but you never know what happens. I'm just happy they didn't tell me to take it down or something.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know if it still applies now that Disney owns them, but Lucas kind of opened it up at one point and said, we don't care about the copyright stuff. You guys do whatever you want, fan base. I don't know if that's changed now, but I mean, that's why a lot of people started making their own stuff, you know, because they could use all these assets.
Yeah, there's so much Star Wars content on YouTube that I don't think they really enforce the copyright stuff. But you just never know what could happen, and it could happen at any time. So I'm just still happy to have it up there, and you know, people can still see it.
Totally,
it feeds the brand.
You
know.
real quick, so on your short, did you use any Mixamo at all, or is it all hand animated? And I know that you had a buddy doing a lot of the character animation, but did you also do some of the character animation yourself? And like, did you do the weight painting yourself? Because that was in the breakdown as well.
Yes. So yeah, I definitely used a bunch of Mixamo. Like that whole scene where that stormtrooper was rolling in, that was all based off of Mixamo animation.
Oh, cool.
And I had my buddy come in and he just reanimated all the
Nice.
all the troopers so they don't just stop randomly but he had to do that in Maya, so he basically had to redo everything.
Oh, wow.
I started the rigging, but I'm terrible at rigging, so
Right.
my buddy had to come in and show me, this is how you're supposed to paint the weights and all that stuff. So
Right. Yeah, I don't know how to do any of that stuff very well at all. But yeah, that roll is one of my favorite shots and has such good weight to it. It doesn't feel like a Mixamo animation anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Someone asked if I would have taken less time if I had no other projects. So I say 3 years, but what I need to emphasize was this was very on and off. So in reality, it maybe took me like a few months, 2 or 3 months. If I sat every day, it could be a month, it could be 2. I wasn't counting how much time. I don't think if I was doing it all day, every day, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. It's really high.
That's not very much time at all. Like that's honestly like very impressive. Any short that I do, I think I've done several that are like around 3 minute, 4 minute mark. That always takes me at least 4 months.
I would be the first to say I'm very bad at estimating time.
Yeah, well, it's really hard. There's so many variables.
So many.
That could go crazy with this CG stuff, and it also depends on how ambitious you are, like how the concept and like what sacrifices you're willing to make to pare it down, or beef it up. Like anything, like a single sim could take you a week, or it could take you a day, or it's so hard to estimate.
Yeah, and you really have to budget your time. It's like, okay, well, this is as much time as it has to be. This is how the sim is going to look. That's it. And that happened to me quite a few times on this project. I just needed to cut it off. This is just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Right. It's good enough.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of time, we're quickly approaching the 2-hour mark at this point. So I just want to make sure we get to these other things. We might have to cut a couple things, but real quick, I'm going to try and like barrel through these links so that we can get to the Mograph recommends segment. And the other thing, David, you and I talked about possibly talking about some Octane stuff. I don't know if you've like prepped for that, or if we can save that for another time.
We could save it for another time to save Sekani. But it was, a lot of it we talked about with like Redshift versus Octane too. Like, there were, and I didn't even get to the stuff I like about Redshift better than Octane, because there are several of those too.
We need to have like a whole render special or something.
Oh, David. I'd love to come back and chit chat.
We should do late night render talk or something one
render
night.
Geekery.
Yeah, do a live special all about render engines.
Billy answered my question too about the Redshift VRAM, and it's called the Redshift feedback display. So I guess I'll just have to look in there again.
Awesome.
Yeah. Somebody said we need courses from Sekani. Well, you've got that hold frame thing. First off, I wanted to say like all of your SIGGRAPH and NEB talks have been like insanely helpful over the years. Like that Dolby talk, I've gone through so many times with the tips on making nice XP trails and managing tons of splines. And then I also loved your talk with the Listerine commercial where you showed how to do time remapping using time tracks, which is definitely a technique that I've used a ton with like concert visuals, like remapping the camera animation and stuff using time tracks to hit the beat and stuff like that. And then the one where you did the crystal dude revving up and transforming, everybody needs to check out too, because that one had some awesome tips on using animated textures and using like After Effects and difference mode to subtract the same animated texture from itself and create like a new animated texture for the leading edge. So that's a very cool technique. And so I think you've already given so much back to the community, the hold frame thing as well. Like that's a whole project breakdown on Hidden that's available with like an hour-long tutorial, like tons of stuff on like Redshift proxies, and yeah, just using Redshift in general, and like animating flowers. I definitely like pulled some techniques from that. So yeah, like I think. But do you have any plans to make like more fully featured courses? Because that's something that the Mograph world could use.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to brainstorm a few ideas for some courses. I don't want it to be just, oh, here's a tutorial. I kind of want to develop a system to kind of equip a motion designer to like conceptualize a project and help execute a project. Because I essentially want to give them more value than just recreating something in a tutorial, because sometimes we take a course and then all we could do from that course is what we learned, and then we're like, well, how do we apply this in the real world? So something
totally.
So something where I could equip
more conceptual.
Like a combination of both. Like really just like, why does an image look good? Or like, how do you do a camera? Just kind of teach them with things to look out for.
Yeah.
So they could know like why this thing isn't good enough, or how they can make it better, because that's where people get stumped. They can't make something better if they don't know why it's bad. So.
Yeah. Almost like a course on art direction in general.
Yeah, but I want to throw in some technical stuff in there as well. To just balance it out. But it's just tricky trying to figure out how to approach that versus like, oh, let's do a camera course or something like that. So.
Right. I mean, I'm actually doing a camera course.
Oh, there we go.
Well, it's more like digital cinematography in general. So like composition, camera movement, and lighting, and also a lot on transitions as well, and like, match cutting and all those kind of things too. So that's all, all that's definitely close to my heart,
Well, no, all that stuff is super important. It's part of, it should be like an essentials pack you need to know as a motion designer. And camera, animation, and lighting, that's a staple.
Yeah. I mean, I can't just buy Octane and be good.
Right.
Yeah.
It will automatically make you better at lighting, I have to say. Like Octane versus physical, just by nature of like physical, like impossible to like do any kind of real-time art direction or see what your lights are even doing. Yeah. So just the fact that you can spin stuff around in real time with Redshift or Octane or any GPU renderer is such a game changer for actually lighting. Yeah,
and motion design in general is just such a nuanced thing. And there's a lot of things you're just going to learn that you can't even explain how you know how to do that.
It's true. People have to like check you. You have to like be able to teach something in order to figure out how you know that.
Right.
It's true. Like sometimes I'm working and I'm like, how did I know to adjust the light here to me? Like, and sometimes you're like, oh, because it's a nuanced thing you've learned over time, and now you have to explain why you're doing that.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just from staring at other people's really good work and projects, and then like you're saying, just experience and all those things.
All right, well let's move to some links real quick so we can get to that Mograph recommend segment. And we'll see how much time we got left after that. If there are any more questions or anything in the chat. Number one link is the one we've been talking about, the Christo Barton Damer one. Make sure you check that out. I think we're going to expand on some of those topics. Some of the stuff they talked about, we've already talked to Barton about, so I'd like to expand in some other topics on Monday. And also, there's a post that Universe 3.2 is coming out. So I'm waiting to find out more info.
Red
on
Giant.
That. Red Giant.
Universe? Is that that thing I never use?
that thing you never use. The thing that I tend to.
You call it the VHS filter.
The VHS filter. I use the VHS filter. It's just but it's really not because of what it is. It's because I'm not an After Effects person that much. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I'm making enough content to really be using it, and so there's a link to that. There's also a link to some stuff that's coming to Premiere Pro. And again, it's something where I'm not like a big Premiere person, except when it came to editing that Houdini course. But they're doing some stuff with productions for people who are working on productions who have like multiple parts of a production and multiple staff, stuff like that. So that looks pretty interesting. And then Cavalry Public Beta is coming soon as well.
That's finally coming.
Dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a link to that. It's just an Instagram post. It's just kind of they're teasing that that's coming soon.
Cool.
And lastly, this is a link to something that I had, and David, you sent me as well.
Yep, so good.
This is a Pause original. This is it's called Hope by Scene Vision, and I'll try and bring it up so we can kind of.
Sekani, have you seen this one?
Nope. What is it?
It just came out a week ago. Yeah, here, Dave's got it up.
Oh, snap.
So.
Yeah, just gorgeous environments. And
it seems to have that Pause look.
I don't know what the Pause look is exactly. I mean, I guess the Pause, I think of Rich Nonsberthy's original like robots animating, but
yeah.
I love like there was fluid sims in there, just like the dripping spaceship. And then
when did this come out?
Like a week ago.
Yeah, this week. And I love the stuff with the planets. I love the lighting.
Yeah.
I love the
good
I love
character
the
animation.
Yeah.
Like the facial animation was really good and subtle. And like these animating plants, like all these, so nice. And also, as far as match cuts, check this out. From here, the plane cutting to the spaceship.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who did this?
I mean, a bunch of Chinese people, I think. I don't know.
There are all of these like either firms or freelancers or whatever you want to call it, coming out of China that are just insane.
Yeah, and I don't recognize these names. These aren't the usual like So My Son or
right.
You know, Xiaolin Zhang. Like those guys are awesome, but these are people I haven't seen before.
And it's hard to do face animation too because
it is. Well, yeah, I was gonna say Sekani did a really good job of that in his Hidden short. Like that must have been that was a ballsy move, honestly, to include a face in there for it to not be in the uncanny valley, but there's enough like attention to detail, like skin imperfections and you know, just the right amount of subsurface scattering and like the eyelids. I was going to ask you with the eyelids, how did you get those to deform? Because like there are certain things like stretching skin, you know.
Posemorph.
Posemorph. Nice. I guess that.
That
solves it.
It's all super important to know like what you can and can't do. I couldn't do a whole face. But if you could do this, if you could get away with that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, just like knowing how to compose the shot and get away with it. That's so cool.
Yeah, I would probably, you would probably never see me do a full face because I know it's just going to look bad. You just have to know like what
absolutely.
What you can't do.
Yeah, what you can do. Yeah, it's so easy for it to be really cheesy.
Anyone that tackles faces, I'm like,
I thought it's not easy to be cheesy.
Ding. I don't get it.
Ding here.
Ding.
Ding.
Oh, it's hitting
your bell's
something.
broken.
It's muffling.
Your bell's broken.
There we go. That's
muffle bell is very unsatisfying. Yeah.
Sorry. I had to insert a dad joke at some point.
Yeah, you did. There not been nearly enough of those.
I know.
On this one.
That's true.
You're off your game.
All right. Well, let's do some Mograph recommends real quick because it's always good to hear from our guests what kind of influences them to do what they do, you know, to reach behind the curtain, if you will. And so we're just going to ask some of your favorites. These can be not necessarily a long time, like lifetime favorite. They could be recent favorites if you want to put it that way, but we'll start with your favorite movie.
Oh, damn, that's a tough one. Really love The Matrix.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The Matrix, for one, has been my most watched movie. I've seen it literally over 50 times. If not more.
Wow.
Well, just because growing up, we had it on VHS and we would just watch it when we were bored.
Yeah.
So I would probably see The Matrix.
That's a good one. That's definitely one of my favorites from my childhood as well. And like really that was like the next Star Wars that got people into VFX. You know, that was the next huge breakthrough of like, holy shit, we've never seen anything like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about music?
Like favorite band or
Well, I guess you could put
genre?
it two ways. Like, what do you like to listen to, let's say, in the car versus when you're working, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually love to listen to a lot of progressive metal. That would probably be my like. It's funny. My taste would go from like progressive metal to like the most trap hip hop to like a little bit of not techno, but more like electronic music. But I think my two top genres like hip hop and progressive metal. But it just depends on the mood. Sometimes just want like a good hip hop album to tune into, or like some really good guitars to listen to. So it just
Well, you've
varies.
been getting into playing guitar now too, right?
Yeah, I've been seeing your Facebook
Nice,
posts, man. Like posting a little song here and there.
It's good.
It's a process, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I don't know how you have time for that along with all the ambitious motion design.
Yeah, I kind of like that challenge. So like, there's this riff
Yeah.
I'm practicing now. You're just literally doing the same riff over and over and over again. It's sometimes like those monotonous type of exercises help to instill discipline. So I kind of like that process. But also like when you start to get it, it feels so good.
And what about TV show? Have you watched anything lately that you're really into?
I'm watching The Outsider right now. I think that show is pretty cool. It's spooky.
The Outsider?
Yeah, it's on HBO.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, but
Nice.
top show from last year was Watchmen. Phenomenal show.
I need to see that still.
Dude,
Yeah.
so good. If you haven't watched it, definitely take it in.
This is random, but have you guys seen the show Raising Hope? We just got into that. It's kind of old. It's like from 2013, but it's super cute. It's like, serial killer. I don't know. I forget I'm not good at describing the premise, but like he's raising the daughter of a serial killer. Like he didn't know she was a serial killer, but that's not even like the premise is just like cute family and like kind of like very poor people, but they're like also very sweet and kind-hearted. And it's just a sitcom, but super good writing. I definitely recommend it. Yeah.
We'll gotta take that in. So much good content right now.
I know it's overwhelming.
Yeah. Did you go through Mandalorian after all your...
Dude, I finished The Mandalorian last night.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Yeah, so good.
Good
That
timing.
last episode really good and directed by Taika Waititi, which is
Yeah.
why it was so good.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he had the witty banter between the stormtroopers.
At the beginning.
It's so funny. Like then they're punching the baby and it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty bold.
That was Jason Sudeikis was one of those two guys on that section, which was interesting. Yeah, Jason Sudeikis and this other guy, I forget his name, but I recognized him too from a couple things. But
Oh,
I still gotta check out like Chernobyl and all those HBO ones.
Chernobyl was
Though
good.
So good. So good.
Golden Compass show, his Dark Materials was really good, and every time I watch the Elastic titles, I'm like, oh, it's so good.
yeah, they've been crushing it, Elastic.
Yeah.
Crushing it.
all right. What about podcasts? Do you ever listen to podcasts?
Yeah, I'm not so much of a podcast guy, but I do watch The Breakfast Club religiously, almost daily. That's
what is that?
What's the Breakfast
It's
Club?
like a hip hop talk show. She's based in New York. Yeah, that everyday struggle.
Do they have people on daily or?
Yeah, they usually have celebrities come in, usually music artists, activists, rappers. So it's just kind of good to hear their stories of success and just different issues, especially stuff that affect people of color. I think that stuff is all. I mean, it's both entertaining and individual, depending on who. Entertaining and educational, depending on who they're interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Cool. All right. Now, render engines aside, what is your favorite plugin?
That's tough. I don't really use a lot of plugins. I would say X particles, but like my stuff is like pretty bare bones. It's the render engine. It's X particles.
Your favorite plugin for C4D is Houdini.
There you go.
Yeah.
Got me.
All right. And what about headphones? You got some interesting looking headphones on right now.
Yeah, the Sony MX1000s.
They look nice.
Yeah, they have noise canceling. Yeah, it's just really good. They have, like different stages of noise canceling. You could isolate just voices only. You could do noise canceling.
Oh, really? Wireless and wired, I'm guessing then.
Yeah, wireless.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at those. Let's see. Next is your favorite website or Chrome extension. We've also added into this. You could say app. Like you take out your phone. What is your go-to?
Is it basic if I say YouTube?
No, not really. I mean, everybody's watching on there. You know, like the other night, on the regular screen, not even on my computer, just on the TV behind me, I'm just pulling up Barton's interview. You know, stuff like that. Like it's just like going to Netflix or anything else at this point.
Yeah, and I feel like obviously, if you want to search something specific, you go to different websites. But if you're on the internet, like you're usually on some type of platform. So when I say like the stuff I keep coming back to would be the platforms. But via the platforms, that's where you find a lot of interesting content. So I'm actually trying to spend a lot less time on Instagram. I'm actually deactivated my Facebook account. I'm taking a little vacation. But I still use Instagram for work. So I need to kind of be on there sometimes. And just to keep doing some promo stuff for Star Wars. But I like YouTube. Sometimes I like just going on artist sites to get inspiration. And Pinterest. Good old Pinterest.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. All right. Here's the tough one. You ready for this?
Yeah. Shoot. Send it.
This is the hardest one always.
Your favorite life hack. And I'm going to give you an example. Is our classic Mitch Myers example, is that he turns the toaster on its side to make some bomb-ass grilled cheese.
Which, by the way, I think is the wrong way to make grilled cheese, because you have to have butter to make grilled cheese. Like, you're just going to get a dry-ass, gross grilled cheese that way, but never mind.
Wow, I thought you guys were kidding. This is a super hard question.
Yeah, it's hard. Right, well, you think about it. So I never had a life hack before. When they asked me, I just made something up like that was total bullshit. But I actually have a life hack now.
Oh,
okay.
It's not very good. But so I've never used like cruise control before. I kind of hate it, in your car. But I was driving across the country and I got pulled over at one point because I was just like tired. We were driving up here. And like my speed was just, it'd go from like way below the speed limit to way above the speed limit. So just use cruise control to lock in your speed at like whatever it is, and you won't get a ticket. Yeah. So there's my life hack.
I dig that. This may not be a life hack, but might just be me being lazy. Like when someone goes through a door and I'm behind them, like I don't like touching door handles. I live in New York, so everything's disgusting. Yeah. I just like shoulder slip in. Out the door, right behind them. I'm like, you used all the energy opening this door. I appreciate it. I'm just gonna slip in.
You just stand behind people waiting for them to go in a door so that you can not have to touch the door.
Sneak in.
Hey, you going in there?
Be my guest. Well, makes me look like a gentleman, and then I do less work.
That's true.
Kill two birds with one stone.
They need more of those little foot things that they have, like on the bathroom doors, where you can open it with your foot, I think.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of how this would apply to bathrooms and like toilet seats, but I don't know if there's a way. Yeah.
Cool. Well, anything else that we want to talk about before we wrap here? I think
Here's a life hack. Wait for the guy with the warmest butt to use the toilet first.
Oh, there you go.
Dude, no, I can't.
No, that's weird.
No, that's weird. No.
Well, toilet
That's what I hate about airports. A whole bunch of large businessmen sitting on toilets, and then you got to go in there.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's rough.
Toilet seat cover.
Yeah. You just take it with you everywhere you go.
Right.
Just in case. Got a stash.
Just tape it to your butt.
It's a new invention.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to get out of here. We appreciate you being on, man.
Man, it was great to finally talk to you.
Yeah, it's just been a long time coming. Glad that we made this happen.
Totally.
Yeah. If people want to find you online, where are the best places to find you on the interwebs?
I'd probably say Instagram at Sekani Solomon, Twitter at Sekani.Solomon, or you could just hit my website, SekaniMotionDesign.com.
Cool.
Sweet.
Cool. And
don't forget, you got to talk to Sage at some point.
Yes, Sage.
His real name on Facebook is Andre Otley. I'll paste it in the chat.
Yeah, Otley is definitely a Trinidad and Tobago surname, 100%.
He actually said in the chat, I think he got accepted to the same school.
Oh, yeah, he got accepted to the same school.
Oh, shit.
But he didn't go there. He went somewhere in Canada instead.
SCAD. Well, the cool thing about SCAD is that literally all the studios would come down there to recruit. So it's a good school to get into the industry.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Raphael Rouse said, "Thank you for the awesome stream. Sekani Solomon, I thoroughly enjoyed your short, amazing production quality and super awesome simulations, shading, and rendering. Keep up the outstanding work."
Man, I could cry right now. Silverwing is the dude, man. Dude, I really appreciate that. A lot of you inspired me to really lift my work up to super dope quality. So I really appreciate you saying that, man. Like, it really does mean a lot.
Cool.
Sweet.
Well, we really appreciate you being on, and David, thanks for stepping in and guest hosting.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
I think I got it. We didn't do any Ravcock. What's your flavor? So I didn't get to go. What's your flavor?
That was going to be our Octane thing. We're gonna have to. I'm telling you, people seem interested in this late night render
Billy
thing.
and Silverwing both want to do late night render chat.
All right, we'll organize late night render chat. I'm trying to do more of these little like rando, like late night things, and I think that they're actually, before it was like, oh well, people are going to bed and all that, but now like there's people all over the world, so like you do an 8:00 p.m. deal and like all these Australians jump in and
totally.
So yeah, we're gonna get out of here. Y'all stay on the line and we'll take care of the tech stuff afterwards. You can rate us on iTunes, leave a review. You can also subscribe on your podcatcher of choice. Helps get our ratings up. We got a newsletter out there. We just sent out a great one. It's going to have links to all sorts of stuff we're doing, events, and that podcast survey, which will also be in the show notes, and things like articles and stuff. We got another article. David, I sent you a preview of the article we got coming out here on Monday. So all of that stuff's in the newsletter. That's a once-a-month kind of deal. You can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt with the Mograph logo tee, the Paul Babb Feel the Babb 2020 shirt. All the profits from that go to Doctors Without Borders. And then there's the Render Things t-shirt, hoodie, and long sleeve tee. And of course, lastly, our That Render is Fire shirt, which you can only wear ironically. So make sure you hit us up, especially like on Instagram, come talk to us and stuff. And if you're doing the classes, by the way, we've been enjoying getting people's stories on Instagram while they're doing their classes and seeing some of the stuff that they're making and improvising on. So hit us up. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, Mograph.com. And that about wraps it up. So we're going to get out of here. Till next week, I'm Dave.
I'm David.
I'm Sekani.
Have a good one.
All right.
Later, yo.
Take care, guys.
Pretty good, I guess. Mograph.com, an online resource for motion graphic artists. Start your week with the Mograph podcast. Industry news, interviews with your favorite artists, and terrible humor. Watch live shows and interviews from Mograph events like NAB, SIGGRAPH, Half-Res, and local meetups. Our Mograph Talks feature live demos and motivation from artists all around the world.
Sometimes you gotta make stuff that you're not gonna put on your reel, and I'm not here to judge.
What if Rick and Morty show up for the countdown at midnight? That's where I peaked in life, in my career.
We gotta stop this thing, Rick! It's gonna kill us all!
Hear from the people that create your software, design your render engines, and artists that are changing the face of modern motion graphics.
You get that render done.
Yeah, you better frame what?
Mograph tutorials and online classes will teach you about Cinema 4D, After Effects, as well as other popular software and render engines.
Throw in the HDR Studio, take the render settings, pick the HDR, put in a reflection, and gorgeous.
Branch into new software. Learn time-saving tips, techniques, workflows, and lessons that'll keep you up to date in the world of motion design.
Oh, brother, those are some of my favorite elves.
I love projects that scare me. When our art director comes to us and asks for something that I had never done before, man, it gets me pumped.
Join the conversation in our live sessions. Check out our plugins, or join the hundreds of daily active users in our Slack channel for technical help, advice, contests, or just to joke around.
Real nice banana.
Ah, that's so funny. All right. I'm going to live forever.
Subscribe today and get the latest updates on our YouTube and other social media channels.
Take all your dreams and just do it!
We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here.
Subscribe to Mograph.com.